Welcome back to Student Hub Live. In this session, we're going to take a look at time management for the super busy. Now, time management is a key issue because very, very often we find ourselves procrastinating, talking about things like cats and cake and how to change our profile pictures to chocolate and doing all sorts of things that are really, really distracting from our studies. So, to help with some of this, we've got a session about being super busy and fitting stuff into your schedules, but also a little bit later we're going to be talking about fitting study into my life, not life into my study, so a slightly different take on time management. And then this evening we have somebody from the Open University Business School talking to you about delegating your chores, which is one of my key things to do. Manage your studying like a manager. So we've got heaps of practical advice for you today, but I'm joined by Katie and Sally and Andrew. Thank you very much for joining us today. You're not going to be talking to us about maths. Although some people might like that in the chat. And we've got some widgets that we'd like you to fill in at home. So how good are you with your time management? We've got one of these scales. All you do to vote on that is just click on where you feel you are, from low to high, 0 being not very good to 10 being excellent. Have you ever managed to do tasks in half the recommended time? So yes or no. Have you given something up to fit your OU study into your life? And have you looked ahead to the next 12 months in your study planner and identified any pinch points, so points that may be difficult or that might require you to think very carefully about how you manage your time? So Katie, can I start with you? Why is time management so important for OU students?
Yeah, so in the maths department, we love getting data on things and looking at things numerically. So the OU actually has quite a lot of data on all the alumni and the students who've been through our doors. And what we have found is that when you look at all the different factors affecting students' study, you can have quite a good idea about what's going to help them and what's going to hinder them. And you get this cohort of students who had a lot which would stand in their way from success. And when you speak to them, you see the key to their success was they were excellent time managers. Right. And so in the maths department, we became really interested in how we can improve people's time management skills. I mean, it's obvious you need good time management skills, but we had this strong data to back it up. So we really wanted to think, right, okay, we want to start working on people's time management skills.
Okay, brilliant. So what did you find? What can you share?
Well, now we're starting to kind of pull together the kind of skills we've got. So there are a lot of good time management advice and guidance materials out there, including on Student Home. So we looked at what people can do to be better, and we've got some top tips for you today. So I was going to start off by talking a little bit about Inbox Zero. But I suppose before I did that, I wanted to see what our students thought about their time management skills.
Okay, so let's see if you filled out our widget yet. No more talk about cats. You've got to focus on this. Otherwise your chances of succeeding may decrease according to our modelling by the maths department. So how good are you with your time management skills? If you haven't voted on that, you do that because we're going to show our things up next. HJ, has everyone got their attention? Are we focused now?
We are focused. We are a little bit distracted because we're excited about Isabella's session later, but we know that's in a bit later and we're all ready and prepared for that, so we can focus on our time management. A lot of us are very nervous about time management just starting off. Sam said she's too scared to look forward 12 months, let alone anything else. But I'm sure we'll get there. But any top tips that you have for time management, I know our fantastic guests would love to hear them. And I'd love to as well, because I'm perpetually at least a week behind, if not more. So hopefully my tutor's not watching. We'll see that.
You'll get a message soon, and it won't be a cat in your inbox. Right, let's see what you had to say at home when we asked the question, how good are you with your time management? So a lot of people in the middle here. Nobody is really saying that they're excellent, but I guess the majority is in the sort of bottom half, with some maybe slightly. There's probably not a very mathematical way of describing it.
It's sort of, more than half in the majority.
Yes.
So I think it's pretty normal to, it's pretty normal at this stage to not feel very confident about what your time management's going to be like. But now is the time to be thinking about it, so that's already good.
Yes.
So my first top tip would be about dealing with tasks quickly. So tasks come in a range of sizes, but if a task comes in and it's a small task and you can deal with it immediately, then do. Just get it done, get it off your plate. Yeah. And if you can't deal with it immediately, then put a date on it. Don't just allow all your little tasks to pile up. If you can't do it this minute, decide when you're going to do it. Put a date on it, either a flag, file it away, and then you're not thinking about it until it's time to deal with it. So everything has its time.
Yeah.
So that would be the first thing I would do to just kind of stop things mounting up.
Yeah. If you can deal with it, should you? Because sometimes I'm writing something particularly boring and then someone will ask me something really peripheral and I think, oh, I could do that right now, and then I do. And then I end up distracted.
Well, that's a little bit feeds into what we're going to say next. So I think Andrew's going to talk about planning your time and allocating your time.
Yeah, I think, for me, it's a case of making a list is really the most important thing. You know, you want to list all the tasks that you've got to do. And I think, many different ways of doing that. Of course, we have a colleague, Wendy, in our office, for example, who is very, very good at writing things down. Absolutely. And she hand writes absolutely everything. And, there's nothing more satisfying than watching her just tick it off, or scoring it out. And I think, even like writing things down that you've already taken care of can be really good. Yeah.
And then you get a sense of progress as well, don't you?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that's really key, is feeling like you're not getting overwhelmed with all these things stacking up, as you say, and you're just able to like clear things off. So I think it's really important to make lists of what's happening. I think, also what you were saying about planning ahead is important, and looking ahead to 12 months or whenever it is. I think your tutor can be a really, really valuable resource here. Your tutor knows the module inside out. They will know exactly where the pinch points are going to be, and they can be really, really helpful in identifying those. I think it also really depends on what your module involves. I'm a student myself as well. I'm a student of A275, which is reading classical Greek. And there's two components to that. There's like a literature component and there's a language component. And the language component is really, really easy to kind of do in short moments, in short bursts. I brought my own little flashcards that I made up for my vocab and things like that.
Very neat.
Yeah, I know, aren't they quite cool?
So you bought these and then you filled them in?
Yeah, exactly. They're just blank flashcards.
Yeah.
And those are things that I can just kind of do, on my own time, whenever. I brought them because I came down on the train this morning, and I just thought it was something I could do. But then there's other tasks like writing my essay, for example, for the literature component is a lot more work, of course. So I need to kind of think about where am I going to find time to do this, and really like blocking out, a whole day, a whole morning, a whole afternoon, a whole evening in order to do that and really sit down and think about it. Is really important, I think.
So some of this is about attention and some of it is about sort of, I guess, economies of scale. Victoria, for example, has 2 screens open at the moment, so she's watching this and she's also got her TMA screen, and she feels like she's being less than efficient, which she probably is. So sometimes there's a need to sort of block time off, sometimes there's a need to write things down, but sometimes, I find myself sometimes writing something that I could have just done if I hadn't written it down. So it's this balance, isn't it?
The list is always sitting down and planning your time, even though it takes time, is always time well spent. You feel like you're too busy to sit down and make a plan, but it pays off. So it is worth planning your time. And actually something I meant to say was, and this feeds into our second question. So a lot of students, when they sign up to OU Study, they see it says requires 18 hours a week, or perhaps it says requires 7 hours a week, and they think, I've got 4 hours spare, I can manage that. Well, if it says it needs 7 hours, it usually needs 7 hours. Now, you might get away with your very first module doing it in a bit less time, but that is not going to carry through your later study. So I would say very much, please, at this stage, look at how many hours it says it needs, and then look at your life and say, where do I find those 7 hours? And do I have to give...
giving things up?
It is likely to mean giving something up, because who sits down and twiddles their thumb for 7 hours a week? So... where am I going to find those 7 hours? What do I have to give up? And how can I plan my time to fit that in? And then those are my study sessions. So I did wonder if we could ask our audience, who has before felt, oh, I've managed to do that in half the time?
Brilliant. Well, we've got one of those as our widget question, so do vote on that and we'll feed your results in. Have you ever managed to do half the task? This could be something on the virtual learning environment, it could be an OU task, or it could just be something like a bake a cake in half the time, which I very much doubt people would do, but it could be something else where you've maybe had a time limit on something, or you've set yourself a time limit and actually you've got it done a lot quicker. 33% say that they have, 67% say that they haven't.
Okay,
so only a third.
That's good to know.
That's pretty good,
Yeah. So I think we were also going to talk a little bit, because it's a February start, you're all going to hit summer. You're all going to have your study go across the summer period, which is a bit of a red flag to us within the OU. We know that causes problems. So I think you wanted to say a little bit about summers and some holidays and what to do.
Yes, and kind of more generally, yes, I did. Thank you, Katie. Because if everybody plans and writes lists and ticks them off, summer's going to be fine because you'll have planned it in and it's going to be fine. But in reality, summer holidays come with all the things that might happen in your life then. And I think the number one tip I would have actually is to keep in touch with your tutor, because quite a lot of new students are thinking, oh, I'm not sure if I can actually bother my tutor, I'm not sure how much to share with my tutor. So especially top tip number one now, your tutor is a fantastic resource. As Andrew said, know the course inside out, the module inside out. So get in touch with your tutor if you've had an introductory email, write back. And then, of course, another important thing which will be helpful over the summer holidays is to think how you study. When do you study? Can you grab a couple of hours in the morning, or are you a nightingale or a lark? Just figure out when you might find that little amount of time that you can set aside. But also, another important thing for holidays is actually you do need time off. So when you're on holiday, you can relax, and you will find that things come into your head anyway. Because we all talk about maths quite a lot, and sometimes you might have noticed.
You do.
And we get stuck. I mean, you do get stuck. Everybody gets stuck with maths. And you might be just kind of sitting there with your sangria or cup of tea or whatever. And you think, thinking about maths like you do on your holidays. And you think, oh, wow, I've just had this light bulb moment. Or if you're writing an essay and you're just not sure how to write it, you might find different ideas connect in your head when you're not doing something.
If I go for a walk, it really helps me. Like things will start to come into place, like just the motion all really helps it come in.
Yeah, absolutely. So taking some time off, you're not actually taking time off because your brain's still working. But the other thing I would say, a really good top tip, is tutorials. So one thing is to keep in touch with your tutor, but the other thing is about tutorials. Some modules have face-to-face tutorials. I know that students are a little bit anxious about those. As a student, I am myself. And you think, oh, I can't go to my tutorial because I'm so far behind in my module. That is the very time that you must go. So for example, if there's a tutorial, it could be an online tutorial during the summer holidays, and you think, oh, I haven't looked at anything for ages, that tutorial will click you back in, back on track, and you'll feel a lot better about it. So keep in touch with tutorials, with your tutors, and most of all, this is a fantastic university. You know, you've chosen a module, it's really exciting. So don't let being scared of anything put you off. Remember, and we talk about growth mindsets a lot. Just don't try just to do something. Get a list written, get off the blank page. If it's maths, you need to be practicing sums, not reading about them. If it's an essay, you need to start writing. Doesn't really matter what it is. Doesn't have to be perfect. But what you have to do is kind of trying to stop looking at pictures of cats on Facebook or something.
Yeah, I mean, that's hard.
That's really
Especially when you ask everyone to send them to you and then you've got to look at them and reply. It is hard. But it sounds like there's a number of things you're saying here that I just wanted to pick up on. So firstly, Katie, you mentioned this idea that there's a sort of allocated amount of time studying, and that while it can be easy at level 1, at level 3, you really need some of that time because, as you say, Sally, it's about this infusion of ideas, making connections and thinking about things and mulling things over. So sometimes, like when we look at a task, we can say, I can watch that video it's a 28-minute video, I can watch that in 28 minutes. But you've given me 40 minutes for that task, Mr. Study planner, and so maybe there's an activity, but I'm going to do that in 28 minutes. So you can sort of try and claw back a bit of time if you are super busy. But it sounds to me like what you're saying is that if you don't sort of start thinking things over at level 1, by the time you really need it at level 3, you almost haven't got that ingrained in you in terms of having that space to process. But also it sounds like what you were saying, Katie, about going for a walk and stuff, it doesn't always have to be proper hardcore study time. Sometimes there might be these grey areas.
Yeah, you don't just need to sit, and so it is ineffective to sit and stare at a blank piece of paper. So sometimes you need to move around, you need to change up your activity. And I think what you were saying about procrastination is really important. So one time management skill is the one thing you need to cross out is your procrastination.
Yeah.
What is it that's stopping you making a start? Well, basically, I mean, I've certainly got to the stage now where I am very much just happy to just phone something in.
Yeah.
If it's got to be in by a date, it's got to be in by a date.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
You can't agonise over everything. And I have noticed that the people that, kind of make the least progress, it's the perfectionists, it's the people who think they've got to get it to such a good standard. Just do something, because you're going to get feedback, you're going to grow, you don't have to be 100% on your first go.
When I was not procrastinating on Facebook the other day, I saw this thing that said procrastination is not about doing other things, it's about not wanting to do the task. It was something like this anyway. And I thought, actually, that's true, because if somebody says, let's go out dancing, I never say, I must go and look at all these cat videos first, or people parallel parking on YouTube, But if someone says to me, would you write this chapter, then I all of a sudden decide it's really important. So there's something about procrastination that's a sort of a mindset as well, isn't there?
Oh, definitely. I mean, what's your sort of worst procrastination thing? I mean, I know I've rearranged the freezer.
Yeah.
I know I've had something that I've procrastinated about, and then something worse has come up that I don't want to do. And then I've gone back to it, like I've had to have a really unpleasant complaint phone call or something. And finally, I think, oh, well, I'll deal with that now because I've got to procrastinate about this other thing. Really, it is about, there is some sort of block between this horrible task and you, or at least this insurmountable task.
And it's a very human thing, isn't it? You're sitting there. I in fact did it yesterday. I was sitting there thinking, okay, I've given myself the time to write something, and almost immediately several things come into your head that you could do.
And
you persuade
yourself. You think, okay, I will.
You persuade yourself that they're good and you should be doing them. But actually, I know it's not good. Katie and Andrew are both perfect. They're great. They get on with things. I'm an awful procrastinator. And actually, I battle with it all the time. So it's not something you're just going to sort out in your first year study. Yeah. You just kind of have to keep going with it all the time. And so what I did actually yesterday, when I was thinking, oh, I'm going to do lots of other things, was a stream of consciousness writing about what I was going to do. Maybe other people will talk about it. So you just get a piece of paper. You maybe don't know how to start, but something's in your head, so you just write.
Yeah.
What were you writing about?
I was writing, it's a literature review I'm writing, and I just couldn't get that perfect first sentence. So I just started to write with the things that I wanted to say eventually, just with pen and paper, not typing.
It's the tyranny of the blank page, isn't it?
It is the tyranny. The blank page is an awful thing.
And internal editor. It crosses out a lot of things. I mean, which actually, in maths doesn't come up too much, but that is what's stopping you. So just writing, spot on, that's exactly it.
And for maths people, it's absolutely doing practice. I mean, languages, you got to practice. So just actually making yourself do something.
Yes.
Yeah.
The task that you're actually trying to do.
Now, you asked people at home, have they given anything up to fit in the OU study? So we would like to take a look at your answers to that, and also whether or not you've looked ahead at the next 12 months, although most modules are 9 months, but it's that whole idea about, I guess, looking ahead sort of in the long term and getting a vague sense of things. So fill in your answers about whether or not you've given something up to fit in your OU study, and you can also type in the chat and let HJ know what it is that you might have given up as well. Okay, so I want to get your guys' advice on something, but one thing I don't know whether you could wriggle into your advice is you mentioned the inbox thing, and I'm a perpetual inbox person. I filter it this way, that way, back on, and I can sit and spend hours filtering my inbox by various things. You had some tips on inbox 0, which I think sounds really, really great.
Well, it really is what I was saying before. So, I mean, to me, I don't do inbox 0, actually. I do inbox less than 15, because that's what manages my anxiety about my emails. Once it starts to grow, I'm like, oh no. The main tip really is to deal with things as they come in. Now, I know you've got your other allocated time, which you should do. When you've allocated a big task, do that big task and turn your email off so it can't distract you, because otherwise it's going to. But when you are looking at your email, when it is your time for doing your multiple little jobs, when it pings in, deal with it, or put a date on it, deal with it, date it, file it.
Yeah.
So just so it's gone. And use your multiple filters. That's great because then you can just, move it around. I can't actually cope with people who keep their inboxes, like in the hundreds or the thousands, and then just use the filter function. I mean, I have begged my brother-in-law to let me file his emails, and he won't. I would spend a whole day on it, but it's like 6,000 or something, and really, I would just sit and vomit all day if that was me. It's got to be manageable because it's so easy to be overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And really, it is about managing. And once you're overwhelmed, you can't make progress.
No.
So it really is about managing your emotional response.
I made a separate folder called non-urgent emails, and then I just moved everything into that. And then I figured if anyone really thought it was important, they'd bug me. And then I just could start with a blank thing and then get the important stuff and just filter it out. Yeah. And then when I get really bored, I can go into my non-urgent emails, and it's amazing how many are non-urgent as well. Right, let's see what people have had to say at home. Have you given up anything to fit into your OU study? Yes, say 67% with people, which is really, really good. Yes, absolutely.
Because it's not easy to give things up, but that is the key to finding. You're going to have to move something to find the time for your OU study. Yeah. So fantastic. That's off to a great start. Now you've just got to look at your summer holidays, and you're sorted.
All right, well, let's see what they said about looking 12 months ahead. So has anyone actually looked 12 months ahead? Let's see. No. Okay, but 42%, nearly half have, so that's good. Okay, so if you haven't, you've got your lovely study planner on your module website. Have a look at that. It's really important, as we've said, to book tutorials in, and when you book those tutorials in, they'll populate them on your study planner so that you can remember to go to them. There are heaps of online tutorials, and some may have face-to-face tutorials as well. They're all optional, but as we've said, they're a great way, especially if you're feeling a bit behind, just to sort of reconnect with stuff that's going on your module. So that's great to see. Sally and Andrew, can you give us your advice for dealing with time, your personal things you've learned, aside from things you've observed from the students?
I think just, going back to what Sally was saying, like we all have moments where things slip, and keep in touch with your tutor, I really think is an excellent piece of advice. I mean, for example, I look very organised with my flashcards, but I have to admit I got an extension for about 4 weeks for my last assignment because I was so far behind, and I turned up to the tutorial for that knowing absolutely nothing about that block, but it helped me so much in getting back on track. So keep in touch with the university, go to tutorials, keep in touch with your tutors is absolutely vital, even if you think that you know nothing.
Brilliant. And Sally, can we end with you?
Yes, for me, I think that's right. Tutorials are optional, but they are actually part of the deal, so please do it. For me, it's going back to the mindset thing. As Katie was saying, it's really very easy to get anxious about things. You've got so much to do. So if you're sitting in front of your computer and you're thinking, you're anxious, you just have to remind yourself that this is important to you, and you just need to turn it round and say, no, I can do this. Yeah. And adopt the growth mindset. And once you begin, and definitely don't procrastinate. then you've had talk to your family, friends. They're a great source for new students too.
Brilliant. Well, I'd love to continue chatting, but I'm afraid we're out of time. And as a time management session, we almost must end on time and set a good example for everyone back at home. But thank you so much, Katie, Sally and Andrew, for joining me in that discussion. Our next activity for you is to try one of these tutorials. So Isabella is waiting for you in the online room. We run Student Hub Live workshops, Isabella and I, in the Adobe Connect room. They're very, very, very busy, and we're going to show you a trailer here of one of our sessions. You need to book onto those, and we've got lots and lots of things coming up for you in terms of things like online learning, but also we do sessions on essay planning, essay writing, and lots and lots of other things. You can find out the details of that on the Student Hub Live website, and you can subscribe to our email list so that we'll notify you when we have new workshops launched. But there's a parallel session, so we'll be playing some replays here, but you can go and join Isabella in the Adobe Connect room from your mobile phone, from your tablet, from any device you like. Just click on that, and then she'll say hello and show you around the platform. You can talk to each other in that session as well. It's very informal. Don't forget to grab some lunch, and we'll be back for the next session, which is again similar in terms of time management, fitting study into my life, not life into my study, and that's going to start at 12:40. So I will see you then.